Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, going live on YouTube. And today I'm going to talk about things you should quit. Yes, believe it or not, there are things in this life that you should absolutely stop doing. Um, Otherwise, you'll probably never even get the opportunity to test yourself to see if you can um, challenge yourself in a never quit situation. So, for instance, if you don't quit being lazy and start PTing and running and swimming, you may never get the opportunity to challenge yourself to get to the training and through the training in a spec ops world. But this goes for everything. It doesn't have to be focused primarily on a career in special ops, right? Or taking on any type of challenge like that. It can just be just regular life. Here are 5 things you need to quit. And if you saw this post on Instagram, I'm basically just going to go through these 5 things and then take your questions at the end. If you have anything specific to what we're discussing or completely opposite of what we're discussing, and something that's been bugging you for a while, maybe a rumor that you've heard that you want to find out if it's true, that's fine too. Ask those questions as well. So I'm going to take some of those. So before I take any questions, let me just lead into this. First and obvious one is quit unhealthy habits. Now, this is everything from smoking, excessive drinking, overeating, overworking, overthinking, overspending, you name it, over just about everything. At some point, you got to start taking your journey in life seriously and seriously start to take care of yourself. Because if you can't have a good physical body to be able to take you from year to year to year, everything else you're trying to do, whether it's academic, whether it's business, whether it's military, whatever, you got to stay healthy. Got to have a healthy body and healthy mind too. Overworking, overthinking, creates overstressing, and that's no good for you either. So you got to find ways to recover, actively recover from stress, because life is stressful, right? So I can't tell you how many unhealthy habits there are that will kill us much earlier than our bodies had intended, right? So that's an easy one. Start taking things seriously. Start taking your training seriously, right? If you're not eating right and if you're partying all the time, not getting enough sleep, that's just going to contribute to just failure eventually. Okay. Let's try being overly critical of yourself. This is a real common one. Why be your own worst enemy? That sucks. We got plenty of people telling us we can't do something. Why do we have to listen to that? Right? So don't. I can't tell you how many people told me I wouldn't make it in the Naval Academy or wouldn't make it to be a SEAL or whatever. Right? And these things are sometimes good motivation for you to prove people wrong. I thoroughly enjoyed doing that, proving people wrong. It's a good motivator. So anyway, here's a great saying I heard. Can't remember who I heard it from, but don't listen to yourself, talk to yourself. And if you're going to talk to yourself, you have to talk positively to yourself. And if you got those negative demons in your head, you can't listen to them. Right? That's easier said than done. But you got to also remember too, life's all about trying and making mistakes and failing, right? And don't think of it as, it's a failure. Think of it as a learning experience. Like Thomas Edison said, he didn't fail 10,000 times. He figured out 10,000 times not a way 10,000 ways not to do something. So you can look at it a couple different ways if you want. Is how you really frame it. So when in doubt, get moving and get some fresh air, clean your head, clear your head, and get back to work. So focus on today. Don't dwell in the past because that leads to depression, and don't dwell in the future because that leads to anxiety. Keep your head level. Focus on today. Get today done. Have some goals for tomorrow, but get today done. All right. So, one of my favorites, quit wasting time. We waste a lot of time. Um, there's some unproductive time that can be spent throughout your day. There's nothing wrong with that. You need to relax, have fun, right? But even relaxing and having fun can be productive, especially if you've worked really hard. You need to take a break. So, my advice for wasting time is if you significantly have completely an imbalance of productivity and being unproductive, if that doesn't balance towards you have more productivity than you do have non-productivity, you need to look at what you're doing. Are you spending too much time in front of the TV? Are you spending too much time in in front of the computer, on your phone, watching movies, playing video games? I get it. I played video games when I was a kid. They were a little bit different back then. You had to get a quarter and drive yourself down to the arcade. Or in my case, I rode my bike down to the arcade and played an hour Pac-Man for a quarter. Right? That was fun times. I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. But you should have some productivity and movement in your day as well. So, quit wasting time. That's a good one. Let's see. Quit thinking instant gratification. Now, I realize we live in a world where you can push a button and get something delivered to your front door the same day within the next 24 hours. That's the way life is right now. But you can't think that life is that way, because it takes time to become whatever you want to be. You don't start a job and you're the CEO the same month, right? Unless you're starting your own business. I guess you are. But let's do it this way. You don't sign on the dotted line to join the Navy and now you're a special ops dev guru sniper killer the next day, right? That takes years. It might take you a few minutes to put on a cool uniform, but it takes you 10 years to learn how to do all the stuff that's in it. So progression, right? It takes a long time learning and mastering a skill. And typically, if you're thinking in the spec ops world, it takes a significant amount of just mental toughness and preparation just to get through the big challenge to get you into the front door, to learn all that stuff. So there's a lot to it, right? You just can't sign and say you're going to be one. It takes some time preparing to do that. So instant gratification doesn't exist in this world for career building anyway. And then quit procrastinating, right? If you feel the wheels are spinning in your world, you're not getting anywhere. Just what I do is say, you know what? I'm not getting anywhere. I am spinning my wheels. I am procrastinating. I do this little thing I call name it and tame it, where it's just something that I realize I'm procrastinating to get something done, whether I have a to-do list or whatever, or maybe I have several things to do that day and I just don't know which one to get started. Best thing to do is just get started on one of them. And then it starts clearing your mind for the others. So that's typically what slows people down a lot, just the volume of things they have to get done, or the amount of work that is having to take place to get something done that can cause you to kind of halt and procrastinate. Sometimes you're sitting there actually thinking about how you're going to get it done subconsciously, but sometimes you're just being lazy and don't want to start putting in the work. So you got to figure that out. The best way to do it is try to realize it as quickly as you can and move on and get started. So my big thing is forgive yourself for past laziness or failure, aka learning experiences, and move toward something that really resonates with you and helps you accomplish other personal goals in life, whether that's job, home, family, um, life outside work, future career goals. So to sum this all up, quitting is sometimes just as important as never quitting, because you'll never get to a point to challenge yourself to never quit if you do not quit some of these bad habits that we have and finally get serious and focus on what you're really trying to do. So that is my 5 things we should quit today speech. So let's take some questions. Have I ever spoken with David Goggins? No, I do not know him. Would love to meet him. I think he's got a great story, and be interested to chat to him with him. Overworking is one that sticks out to me and something I stress to other people. Yeah, you know what? It's nothing wrong with working hard. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't work hard. You can work hard, but you can overdo it too. And then you'll feel it start to interfere with your life, whether that is you have a compromised immune system, you lose all motivation to do anything, you're just tired, you're lethargic. That happens. Muscle growth can shrink actually when you're overstressed, overworking. Decreased performance in all areas, whether it's physical, academic, personal. Just start sucking, right? So you can overwork. It is possible. So you just have to realize when you need to pull back and relax. That's why I like to have that middle of the week mobility day. So by Thursday, after 3 really good days of working out, I'm pretty tired. And today is my mobility day. Just did a nice hour non-impact cardio mixed with stretching and foam rolling and massage tooling, and left the gym with no pain. In fact, I don't even think I broke a sweat. And today's an easy day. But that's going to allow for me to have one hell of a Friday and Saturday workout that I could probably do a 2-a-day on Friday and then do a killer one on Saturday. So, don't look at it as like it's an easy day. Look at it as it's going to improve your performance the next 2 days, instead of just going through the motions of a workout. So I would rather have 5 killer workouts in a week than 6 or 7, with over half of those being crappy. So think about that. Let's see. What's the fastest you've seen someone contract and ship out? You know what? We had a guy that'd been working out with us for about a year, and he had to finish college. So he was taking classes and working out with us in the morning. And then he enlisted, took the PST, the day after he went in and filled all the paperwork out. Had scores good enough to auto qual. He got through MEPS that same week. I'm not sure which one came first. Maybe he PST'd first and then MEPS, or MEPS then PST. Doesn't matter. Happened in the same week. And he left later on that month. So less than a month he was shipped out. So, but things have to work in your situation to do that. 1, you have to be completely prepared. 2, you have to have no medical issues that's going to slow you down, or waivers or anything like that. And 3, there has to be a slot open and available for you to be able to, leave at that time. Sometimes for instance, March, maybe even May is filled up, and the next ship date's not even until July. So if you started today, you're not going to leave till July, unless somebody can't leave in March, and it may open up if you're ready to go. So seeing that happen as well. So some people had July dates, and He said, "Hey, we got a March date. Anybody wants it?" And somebody took it, and they left in March. 3 months, 4 months early. So it can happen. It can happen fast, but I've also seen it take a full year. So there's no one answer on that one. What's your opinion on the Hypervolt? I love it. I have both. I have the Hypervolt massage tool that looks like basically looks like a jigsaw with some fittings on the end that goes this way. And then I have the RioB car buffer that just is an oscillating orbital car buffer that doesn't spin, but it just vibrates. I have both of those. I personally use the car buffer more than the Hypervolt. I just find more uses for it. I find the Hypervolt is really good for soft tissue areas like muscle, but the RioB is really good for the harder areas like around the joint. Like you can hit the outside of the knee with the car buffer, and you can't do it with a Hypervolt because that's just like pounding on bone. Like you can use the car buffer on your shins. You can't do the Hypervolt on your shins. It's just like hammering bone. So, so yes, good question. If I were to get one or the other, I would go with the car buffer. I have both, and I also have the Hyper Ice vibrating foam roller. I like that too. It's pretty good too. So, love all of them. I think they all have great uses, but if I was only getting one, car buffer for $25 wins every day. Let's see. Want to be enlisted, currently in college, but taking a huge toll on me, interfering with my training. Any advice? My advice is finish college and find ways to train. When we were going through college, we'd work out before school. We would swim during lunch or in between classes, and then we'd play rugby, and then we'd swim or run after rugby. Got to fit it in. Then we'd study all night. So it can be fit in there. In fact, I wrote an article on that. In fact, if I answer any of these questions that might have some further explanation, check the description, and there'll be another article that I've written. But I've written articles on the car buffer, written articles on overworking, overstressing, articles on what you just asked about, fitting fitness into a busy college schedule. I'll put those in the description below. Let's see. Do you have anyone guaranteed C school on their enlistment contract? No, you know what? I'm not really my thing. Not really sure about a lot of the administrative options you have when you are joining in the military. I'd talk to your recruiter on that one. What's the percentage of people that go to your workouts that complete BUD/S training? Good question. We've had some that are just unlucky. They got injured, got sick and injured. And those suck. But we've also had some that said they quit, and most of them actually quit before they even started. So I don't get it. They just had changed their mind. But no, we typically have, it's rare when we have someone not make it. Some years are better than others. We have everybody make it in some years it's 75, 80% of people that train with us make it. So typically I will say that we expect 100% to graduate. And when we don't have that, it's either caused by somebody getting injured, like we had an ankle surgery recently. We had some concussions. And some of these were even post Hell Week, so guys were able to get through Hell Week and then still get injured, which really blows. But yeah, I would say over the years, it's been around 85, 90% have made it. But like I said, some years are better than others. Some years we have 100% graduation rate. Some years we're down below 75. But all the, when you average it out over 20 years, it's up there. So, yeah. Like I said, I expect everybody to make it through. And we're surprised when they don't. Let's see. I'm waiting on MEPS to get back to me about my med doc ups. I think I might need a waiver for my wrist. That happens. Not sure what you're asking there. So yeah, waivers typically come and go. Some people get them, some people don't. Just depends on the severity of them. Pretty much anything that you've had a surgery for requires a waiver. Any eye surgery correction like LASIK, PRK requires a waiver. Those are typically 100% granted. The waiver process is not that challenging. Just depends on what it is. So some things aren't waiverable. So, is it possible to not drink in the teams? Yes, some guys do that. I would say I didn't do a lot of it probably the last year prior to going to Buds. Then when I was in the teams, it was party time. Not all the time, just some. I tended to be more of the designated driver back then than the drinker, but I did partake in parties. But yeah, there's some people that just didn't drink at all. And I was like, that's cool. Come join us anyway. And, like I said, they took care of us. So it's always good to have somebody not drinking in your group. They can take care of you in certain ways, get you home if you need to. Okay. Yeah, they will accept people that need waivers. I mean, there's people that need waivers every day going through MEPS. MEP's job is to find reasons why not to get you into the military. Then, if they find something, there may be a waiver available for that, right? Let's say you broke your leg when you're 12 years old and it maybe didn't heal correctly. You're going to need a waiver for that. You get eye surgery, you're going to need a waiver for that. It just happens. Can you get eye corrective surgery before going to a recruiter and for SEAL? Yes. My recruiter told me I would have to pretend like I never had it done. Your recruiter's an idiot. That's not how it works. Don't listen to your recruiter when they say stupid shit like that. That drives me nuts. This has been established rule since the 90s, right? Where if you get LASIK surgery or PRK surgery, you have a 6-month window before you can join the Navy. After that 6-month window is up, you can go to MEPS. MEPS will review your eye surgery, sign off on it. You pass all the tests, you're in. It's that simple. Jesus. What are your thoughts on CSS crossover technique? Not a fan. Just stay on one side. Advice, improving sit-ups. I'll put an article in there. Latest on running. Helped out a lot. Good. Glad it helped. Let's see. Yes, I do have advice on improving sit-ups. There's a lot of different things you can do, from not only doing sit-ups, adding plank poses, adding hanging knee ups, those type of things. It is more of a hip flexor activity, so more flutter kicks, leg levers, things like that you do will actually help your sit-ups tremendously. But I'll put an article in there below to show you what you can do. Yeah, quit before they start. It happens. Someone just mentioned that they had a buddy drop at boot camp. You know, it's crazy. So I'm not sure why that happens. Sometimes they just change their mind on the whole process. Maybe their why wasn't strong enough. Not sure why they do it. I really don't. Especially how many times they had to take the PST just to get to that. All the crap they had to go through. Yeah, not sure. Sometimes the anxiety of that official PST at boot camp gets to people. But like I said, if you've crushed the PST so many times, it's just another workout, folks. You can't sweat that thing. You do need to be well above the minimum standards so you can treat it like just another workout. You can treat a 500-yard swim as a warm up. Right? It's not something that's going to crush the rest of your PT test, but that takes time to get to that level of fitness. Okay, what are chances of becoming a SEAL, active duty 29-year-old? Yes, it's possible. Seen it. Can happen. Last SQT class had a 33-year-old in it. So it can happen. Should you try to go to buds after high school or wait? I don't recommend going after high school. Most 18, 19-year-old kids quit. If you're looking at a majority of people who do not make it at buds, are usually teenagers. I personally think it's for a couple of reasons. Maturity. They're not mature enough to make it through that. Two, they're not physically finished growing yet. And that means you have softer bones. You tend to get injuries a little bit easier, more shin splints, just typical overuse injuries because you just haven't really learned how to train properly yet. But don't get me wrong. There are people who are 17, 18, 19 years old who make it through, and it's quite impressive. I can't tell you how impressive those teenagers are that make it through buds. But I would say this, I went through at 22, and I look back at what I had to endure at 22, and I know I could not have made it at 18. And I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. Went to college, realized that those 3 sports really weren't going to help me in the military. Powerlifting, football, wrestling, track. I was just a big guy that thought long distance was anything over 100 meters and didn't know how to swim other than playing Marco Polo and playing in the water. So, yeah, I had a lot to learn between 18 and 22. So take that time and use it wisely. For the PST, do you recommend the CSS or the sidestroke? There's 2 strokes. The combat swimmer stroke is a modified sidestroke. The elementary sidestroke, and I've made videos of both, it's a little bit different. I think the CSS is much more efficient than the elementary sidestroke. But if that's what you know, do it. I've seen 6-7 minutes, 500-yard side strokes, elementary side strokes, where you glide like this, right? And you just grab an apple, put it in the basket. That's how they teach it. Instead of the pull, breathe, kick, glide method. So you can get fast at it. Just depends on your streamline, really. If you join the fleet before trying to transfer into buds, enlisted, what are the best jobs to do that give you the best chance of preparing, training for the next 2 years? Something that's not on a ship is one that I would recommend. That's kind of hard to do because a lot of jobs are on ships. Even if you're an air crew, you could be ship's company on an air crew, so just depends. Probably not ship's company, but you'll deploy. Probably rescue swimmer would be a good step up. Diver be a good step up. But look, here's the deal. There's nothing in the Navy that prepares you for buds, right? In the Army and Marine Corps, you have the infantry, which is pretty physical process. Um, so um, the the next step of that is to take it to another level. Can go recon, can go special forces, or can go ranger, then special forces. So there's a progression in the other branches of service that the Navy does not have. There's nothing in the Navy that prepares you for buds. So I personally think you can better prepare yourself on the street while you're a civilian versus in the fleet. That's my opinion. There's many people who come from the fleet well prepared. So not saying you can't. I'm just saying statistically speaking, it's easier to not join the Navy first. Plus, sometimes transitioning into buds from a job, let's say that job is undermanned, they may not let you go and change rates. Or let's say your year group is full. Say you joined the Navy in 2020 or say 2017, and now it's 2020, and year group 17 is full for SEALs, you're not going to go to buds unless that year group decreases real quick. Usually after the first enlistment, it will open up again, 4 to 6 years later. But sometimes it takes that long for you to be able to get there. So think about that. That's something a recruiter won't tell you. Let's see. Do you have any advice for a friend who wants to be a SEAL officer through OCS? I have tons of advice. In fact, I'll put an article in the description. Great shape. Currently having trouble finding officer recruiter. He needs to go online and find an officer recruiter because they're just about every city or recruiting district. Let's see. Once you get the boot and do the official PST, do you suggest hitting the minimum standard and getting it done, or just go all out per usual? I never recommend shooting for minimum standard in anything. But there'll be days when you feel good and days that you don't. You just do the best you can. That doesn't mean go all out. Let's say last thing you want to do is go all out in the swim and suck at everything else following it, right? Or go all out in the PT and then you got no juice left for the run. So you got to think more strategically about every time you take a PST and make sure you have enough juice to be able to hit your pace that you want to hit in the run. Otherwise, you're just going to bonk and just get slower every lap. So good question, though. Let's see. A couple more questions here. So what percentage of people graduating buds? So with that percentage of people graduating buds, what would you say the average time training with you is? Months, years? You know what? It depends. It depends on how they come in. If I don't have to teach somebody swimming, that's several months off the process. If they're already a great runner and strong, several months off the process. I've had guys just come in and train with us for 6 weeks, and they were gone because they were already physically had a good foundation coming in. We just helped them peak it, whether it was a technique issue in the pool or better technique running, maybe creating a strategy for them, or maybe just focused on some of the other weaknesses that they had to get through the training. Maybe they already came in with killer PST scores. They just needed to focus on 4-mile runs and 2-mile swims and other activities. So it really depends. Some people need a full year or more. Some people need less than 6 months. So no one answer for that one. So do any of you guys have problems with tattoos? Yeah, we actually have a guy right now has neck tattoos that he's going to have to get them removed because you can't have neck tattoos. And depending on what they were, I think you can't have brands or anything, distasteful. So, you ever worked coordinated with British forces, SBS, other units? Yes, we did some SBS with the Brits as well as the Australians. A lot of fun. I really enjoyed those guys. Very professional. This was back in the 90s. And you got to remember back then, before 9/11, those were the guys that were between them and the Israelis. They were the only ones that were dealing with anti-terrorism because they had the IRA the Brits would deal with. And we'd actually learn from them back then. Oh, let's see. Any advice on staying prepared physically for BRC while going through Marine Corps boot camp and school infantry? Well, the good news for you is, unlike the Navy, is that you can actually get in shape at boot camp and the school of infantry because it is hard as hell. So that's a good thing. I would say lick your wounds, take care of yourself. If you can, get into the pool anytime that you can. Even if it's just to cool down at the end of the day, keep your swim skills up because everything else you're probably going to be prepared for everything else. So running and rucking and all that, you'll do plenty of that, in the Marine Corps. So, all right. So we're going to end on this one, bathroom breaks at Bud's. How's that work? Just like everybody else, if you're wet, constantly wet, sometimes you just go in your pants, right? You just pee, wooden crap. There are bathroom breaks. You actually have times in between events. Usually you'll have an hour classroom followed by a swim or a run, and there's a 10-minute break in between that you can transition to get out of your one uniform to get into your swim uniform. And there's bathroom breaks. There's bathroom breaks at meals. It's never been a problem, right? And like I said, when you're wet all the time, who cares? Sometimes it keeps you warm. So, all right. So I'm going to end on that one. That was pretty fun. If I didn't get to your question, feel free to post it below, or you can IM me or DM me at Instagram, StuSmith50. Last one before I sign off is treading important at Bud's. Yes, you should get good at treading, both with fins and without fins and without your hands. So it's important. You should be able to do it. So there we go. Another day. You guys enjoy the rest of it and have a good weekend. I'll chat with you next week. Stu Smith out.